Thank you, Eric. I loved your justification of procrastination. That was brilliant. Um, it reminds me, we have a saying at work, perfection is the enemy of done, which I think is a common, a quote that people know, but I had never heard it before. Um, and I think a lot of my procrastination has come from that need for perfection. And so each week that I have had the honor of getting to get up here and give a talk, I was able to spend a lot of time ruminating and thinking about what I wanted to say. I knew the theme a couple of months in advance. I knew exactly when I was speaking, and I was able to ruminate on my perfection before standing up here. Um, in light of the theme Action for 2022, I was given 2 days' notice. I did not know the theme. I did not know what I was going to talk about. And I was in the midst of my 2022 revelations. Like, okay, give me a revelation. What are we going to talk about today? And a lot came to me. And one of my 2022 revelations came in terms of, obviously anybody that knows me knows that my children are my entire world. And I love them more than anything in this world. And momming is tough. It being a no, I feel very responsible for making sure that these amazing tiny people don't grow up to be serial killers, right? Like there's a lot of responsibility to make sure, my son is now 13 and I'm starting to enter those years of have I set the foundation solidly enough to unleash him on the world in a few years and to make his own decisions. The teenage years are a lot about making your own decisions and your own mistakes. And one of the things that has been sort of my cornerstone since I had my children was that they're not mine. They have their own path and their own trajectory, and I am just their tour guide. That's it. And it takes a lot of the pressure off of that perfection, but I spend a lot of time in reflection of the kind of mom that I want to be. How do I want to support these little people on their journey? And how do I want to show up? What does love only look like when you're also responsible for correcting bad behavior? What does forgive everything look like when you're trying to impart a forgiving heart on people that I love so very much? What does remember who you are look like when you recognize so clearly the perfection of your children and wanting so badly for them to see that perfection in themselves? And so in that reflection, I was reminded, so last spring, my son got invited to Park City, Utah with his best friend to go spend a week in Park City, and he was so excited to go. He was so excited he wanted to do this. And the mom in me was thinking, I don't know if you're ready for a week-long trip 10 hours away from us. And I grappled with it. I struggled. I can get stuck in inaction. How often do we chew on a problem, right? I've got this problem, I just chew on it. And if I have a good enough think, the solution's going to come, right? Except the truth is that the solutions come when we let go. The solutions come when we stop holding so steadfastly to what we think the solution is supposed to be. And so everything in my soul, when I was ruminating and chomping on that problem, wanted to tell my son he couldn't go. I knew in my infinite wisdom that he wasn't ready, that I was going to get a call to come pick him up, that I was not going to be able to drive all the way to Park City, Utah to pick my son up, and that this was not a good idea. And then I got quiet. And when I got quiet, I realized that he was his own person with his own path. And that even though in my mind I was scared, this was his first trip that far away from me too, that I had to let him go, because otherwise I was going to be forever known as holding him back that time that he wanted to spread his wings and fly, and I held on and I clung. And so I let my son go to Park City, Utah, and I was scared, but I know the truth, and I meditate. And when I feel that rumbling, sometimes action looks like settling down and clearing a path for my highest self and the highest to come through. And so I let my son go to Park City, Utah, and the first night I got the phone call, "Mom, my tooth hurts." And I'm like, "I don't think his tooth hurts. I think he's homesick." And I'm like, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And I talked him through it, and I got him through to the next day. And then the next day he had a really great time. And then that night I got the phone call, "Mom, I miss you. I'm upset. My tooth hurts." And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with this kid's teeth. He just had a dental appointment." But I talked him through it, and we had a conversation, and I told him how much I love him. And I got him through to the next day. And then the third night, the call came through. "Mom, I made a bad decision. I need to come home. I need you to come get me. I'm homesick, and I shouldn't have come. And I need you to come pick me up." And it was 8 o'clock at night. He was in 10 hours away. And the mama bear in me wanted to strap on shoes and run to Park City, Utah to pick up my baby. And I wasn't sure that was the right thing to do. And so my mind started going. And so I made the error that I think that we all make when we're stuck in indecision and we don't know which action to take. And I started to take opinions from others. And so and I'm fortunate, I have plenty of people in my life that are more than willing to share their opinions about how I should live mine. And so there was no limit to the number of opinions. And everybody that I talked to told me that this was a rite of passage, that I needed to let my son live with the consequences of making the decision to go, that he needed this. It was imperative. It was imperative to his manhood that he needed to feel empowered to handle this on his own and to sit through it. Universally, everybody that I spoke to, I had a lot of people tell me about how they remembered their first time at summer camp and writing letters home to their parents that were tear-soaked because they wanted to come home and they were homesick. And I thought, well, gee, that really imparted a core memory if you remember the tear-stained paper. But I got it loud and clear that everybody I talked to felt like the right thing to do was to allow this to be a teachable moment. And I am huge on teachable moments for my children. But the thing is that the mama bear in me wanted to go pick up my kid, strap on my shoes, and everybody was telling me that was a terrible idea. And it was 8 o'clock at night, and I was just about to put my daughter to bed, and it was 10 hours away, and my brain was just on fire. And my son's calling me, "Mom, are you coming? Mom, are you coming?" And people are telling me, "Don't you dare go pick up your kid," and I want to put on shoes. And it got so loud. It got so loud that I was paralyzed, absolutely paralyzed. And so I was like, "Everybody, I need 10 minutes. And I went in my room, and I sat, and I reflected, and I was like, "Okay, universe, I need to know which action to take. Which way do I go? What do I do?" And when I emerged from that room, I told my husband to put on his shoes, and I told my daughter to grab her iPad. And we loaded in the car at about 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and headed for Park City, Utah to pick up my son. Now, I will tell you that people were telling me, "God, that's going to be a terrible experience, driving through the night in Park City, like driving and then turning around." I mean, the only thing I saw of Park City, Utah was their 7-Eleven as I was getting energy drinks because we had driven through the night. But the thing is that I was with my husband and my son, my husband and my daughter at the time, and we had a blast. We had an absolute blast because I take the party with me wherever I go. There is no negative experience that I am forced to experience. I get to decide. This is my life, and I get to decide whether a drive to Park City, Utah is going to be one where I crank up the radio and look at the snow-capped mountains, or whether I decide to be bitter about it and ticked off that I have to drive 10 hours in the middle of the night. And that morning, the next morning, we got into Utah about 8 o'clock the next morning, and I got to wake up my son. And the look on his face told me everything I needed to know, that I had done the right thing. Because the thing is that there are lessons to be learned about growing, what it means to grow up as a man, and taking responsibility and accountability for your actions, and being responsible for your decisions. But there was also a lesson to be learned about the fact that my love knows no limits. There are no boundaries to the love that I have for that child. And that if he needs me, as he enters this, he's a teenager now, his decisions that he makes are going to have much bigger consequences. There are much bigger decisions to be made in those teenage years. And I taught my son that day that if he calls me and he needs me, I will be there, no questions asked. I taught my son that day that there is no decision you make that can't be undone. See, the thing is that we have this idea, we have this belief system that all of our life's lessons, that we have to learn these life lessons, and if we don't learn them, if we don't learn to, if we don't learn to delayed gratification, if we don't learn how to delay gratification, what the hell are we waiting for? Why would we delay gratification? Give me my satisfaction now. There's nothing I need to wait for. How many of our beliefs are we believing that are somebody else's beliefs? I don't need to teach my son that he's stuck, or that I won't be there for him when he needs me, or that it's a rite of passage, that we can't admit that we made a decision, that we took an action that we regretted later, and that we can't pivot. I want my son to know that every choice he makes, that he should boldly take action and go with his gut and trust his instincts. And if he finds that once he's taken that action, he requires new action, that he has no fear, no inhibition, no question that he can pivot and make a new choice. Action is about the first course of action. The first thing we have to do in this first week of action is recognizing who the believer is. What beliefs are you believing that no longer serve you? Where is your mother's voice, or your aunt's voice, or your third grade teacher's voice, or your minister's voice telling you the lessons that you need to learn, or what your life is supposed to look like? And then let them go. This is your life. This is your path. Rules only need to be followed by those who believe in them. Blaze your own trail. And in this year of 2022, as we spring-load into action, I invite you to pick the path that feels right, to put on your running shoes, run towards your baby, no questions asked, and to really live in the love-only energy. Because I guarantee you, when you filter your choices through love only, you can never, never, never make the wrong choice. Namaste.